Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sibling Chat. I'm Lavaro.
And I'm Leia.
And I'm Maya.
Today, we're going to be talking about geeks.
And geekdom and cons and I guess geek culture in general.
Yeah.
Geeks.
Yeah. So, do y'all identify as geeks?
I identify as a geek. I don't go to the meetings. I haven't.
The meetings?
He got that out like straight off the bat. Like, I don't go to the meeting.
Are you calling the cons the meetings?
I'm calling the cons.
Okay, I was confused for a bit. I was like,
There are meetings. Those are the big geek meetings. They're the cons.
the geeks signal to each other that
Right.
it is time,
Yeah.
and we all converge.
Yes.
Yes, and I'm not even looking at this as a bad thing. This is awesome that
Yes.
this happens. I just haven't been able to get to a lot of them. I've
That's
been to New York Comic Con a couple of times.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can one clarify the criteria of geekdom?
Well, so if you look at like Merriam-Webster, right, basically geek and nerd are sort of the same thing
Sure.
as they're officially defined. Geek usually comes down to an intense interest in either like a world or some sort of fiction or even just a general interest. Like there are people who are like geeky about fashion, geeky about music.
Okay.
And they just enjoy it. And then versus nerd almost means that you're approaching the level of expertise. As in that's how you like view the world, right? So
Okay.
you can be like, I'm a fashion nerd, I'm a
Music nerd, TV
music nerd,
Got
I'm a
it.
Star Wars nerd, but that just means like intense study
Okay.
of it. Yeah. Geek
Nice.
though like has much more become associated with like also the genres like sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah. So as you're saying, and I'm agreeing, geek is basically an extreme passion about something,
Precisely.
and nerd is an extreme knowledge about something.
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So anybody can be a geek or a nerd about anything. People have used them in like derogatory or, negative ways with negative connotations, but they're actually not. Like if you study anything intensely, you're probably a geek or a nerd about it. We just always associate it with pop culture now, particularly geek more so than nerd. So
And for our purposes, we're talking about like screen
Yeah,
geeky stuff.
I was
So we're talking
Yeah.
about movies and television and anything pertaining to that. So
Yeah.
what do you think you geek out about the most?
I remember the first time I really realized that I was like into this because when I was younger, it didn't like being called a geek was just like a negative thing.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I really remember that, but I remember the first time I really realized like that I was into something that fell into that category because I grew up watching Star Trek was when Sci-Fi Channel premiered. Sci-Fi Channel is actually 25 years old this year.
Oh wow.
But I remember when it first premiered and thinking like, this is for me. This channel is meant for
This is my
me
elements.
to watch.
This is my essence.
And like
This is
television.
television.
Like,
this is film.
Yeah.
This is art.
yeah, it was just
Got
like this wonderful moment of like this channel that was going to play all the stuff that I thought should be on TV. That was the first time I was like, this is mine. And I liked fantasy a lot too, but sci-fi always spoke to me. And so
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're a sci-fi geek, you would say.
Well, you're a multi-geek, but you say
I
sci-fi is like near the top of the list. Of
yeah,
Got it.
Yeah, like when people ask, like I'm the person who's like, oh yeah, I'm a Trekkie. Like I'm that person. Like I'm very comfortable with that.
Nice.
It's like you gotta find your people.
You
Amen.
do.
Find your
I
tribe.
would say probably
Exactly.
at the top of my and there are many things. Well, no, I would say superhero movies and the television too, movies and television, because since this whole before that, back when I saw the first Superman movie, the Christopher Reeve Superman movie,
That's an excellent film.
it is.
Like to this day, I watch that film so often. I love that movie.
Nice.
And from there, like I used to, my parents always tell a story about I used to I had this blue jacket that used to wrap around my neck, and I would fly around. I wouldn't actually fly because I can't fly, but that's what I would do. I would fly around, with the blue jacket on. So ever since then, when Batman came out,
Yeah.
and like the Michael Keaton Batman, and when Ninja Turtles came out, like all that
Right.
stuff was like I was really into. As a kid, I was really into it, and it has not gone away.
Yeah, because I remember like there wasn't just like what it meant to be a geek was never really defined. Not when we were younger. I feel like you're sort of coming up in a different time where like being a geek is sort of like a thing. If you're a geek,
Yeah.
this is what you're into. But when we were younger, there wasn't that. Like even reading like sci-fi novels it was like, oh, you just like to read. It wasn't like, oh, well, you're reading a sci-fi novel about A, B, C, D that actually falls into the geeky sphere. Like, it just wasn't there. And now, though, I sort of love the fact that I can Google, like, geek events in New York City, and, like, something will come up. It's wonderful. Like, if I would have had this when I was younger,
it would have been over.
I don't know where I would have been in life, but like,
you had to go to a movie, or you had to go to a comic book store, you had to go to these places to even, like, now it can be with you all day throughout life.
Like, there's so many people that like I only like interact with them on Twitter because it's about like being a minority geek. Like that's just who I follow, and it's great to like have that community no matter where you are. And also being a minority, it's also really awesome nowadays, because I got real tired of being like, oh my God, you're female and you like Star Trek, or you know what anime is, and I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, turn on the television and then you know what it is. That's real basic.
I feel like now it's like cool to be in that realm. Like, I remember when I was like growing up and in high school and stuff, like, I don't know. I just remember that being like, oh, so and so is different, but it's like kind of cool though, like that they're into that, and like I don't know. And now it's just like normal. And now, at least with me, I'm like, I kind of want to know about that world, because obviously it's interesting that this many people, especially people of color, are starting to like share that they like stuff like that now. And it's like, I wonder, what draws them to that. So there's definitely like, I don't know if that makes any sense.
No,
but it does make sense.
Because now it's cool. Now as an adult, I can walk around with a Spider-Man hat on
and be perfectly fine.
Exactly. To which before I had to be like some sports team or whatever, which was cool when I was a kid. I watched the Bulls and everything, but I was more so into Batman and Superman and Spider-Man. So like, and I think about how people still wear like sports hats from when because they grew up watching the Knicks or watching the Bulls or whatever. But I grew up watching these superheroes, so why can't I still just wear Spider-Man?
My favorite thing now is to be able to find like paraphernalia that's somehow related to geek culture, because you could not find that when you're younger.
I think it's more
like,
welcomed nowadays.
It is. People are more curious rather than, I guess, dismissive maybe, or negative about it. Perhaps that's the way to put it.
Do you think that geekdom can be kind of like saturated, like the field or the genre is like kind of saturated because it's like trendy?
Never.
Because it's like in style.
Never. I don't think any genre can ever be saturated. I think quality can go down.
Okay.
Do you think that there are people who are claiming to be a part of it that really aren't?
Right.
I think
like they saw one Batman movie and so now they're a Batman geek.
If you saw one Batman film and now you're a Batman fan, I'm all for it. Now you're part of the crew. Like, I don't feel like there should be gatekeepers, and maybe it's because I spent so much of my like childhood being kept out by the gatekeepers, by like the young guys in my life who they would be like friends, but even though they're friends, I still have to prove that I was going home and watching Dragon Ball Z every day. Then on top of the fact that like I was a black female, having to be like, wait, you're black and you like anime? Man, you're not like the other black people I know. Like, what the fuck does that mean? I can read. I can like whatever I want. Like, I read a lot of high fantasy when I was younger. So even that had a level of gatekeeping to it, mostly also because fantasy was written predominantly by old white men, granted, but there was still a level even in the fan communities for those books. So I don't really believe in gatekeeping. I feel like if you're into something, you're into something. Now, don't go around being like, I'm an expert in Batman and you've seen one Batman film. Be like, I'm an expert in that one Batman film. But I feel like that way about anything. I'm not going to claim to be an expert in, I don't know, Bluetooth when I really don't use a lot of Bluetooth devices. You know what I mean? Like like random crap. Like you know what I mean?
I'm a Bluetooth geek.
Yeah, right. Like, but if you are, do you? Because some people I know their whole house is Bluetooth up. So I'm like, get it. But for me, I'm like, no. So yeah, I don't do gatekeeping at all. I'm just like, come in. Welcome. You want to know? Like, let's talk about it. I will find somebody who will teach you more about this.
Nice.
I will go with you to the store. Like, yeah, I'm all about it.
There's also a very, in geek culture, there's a high level of debating. This is what I'll call it. That I really appreciate because being a geek is really passionate, and to have
passion based
or an argument in that world is a real. You would think that two people are talking about the fate of the actual fate
Yeah,
of the world.
yeah.
We're
Right.
just actually talking about the fate of Batman.
Right.
Right.
And it's funny because you could always see like the change in like the tone, because then it'll start off as like a casual, oh yeah, da-da-da-da-da. And then someone will give like a slight opinion on something, and then the whole like it's like, oh my god, you get it, so let's talk about it. Like
Yeah.
it's like it becomes a whole thing, and it's like kind of fascinating to watch.
And you can take a position and really be strong.
Really be
and
strong
there's no,
about it.
and there's really no right or wrong. I mean, and it's even me saying there's really no right or wrong.
I know you
It
already
makes you
told me,
crazy.
like.
You're saying that because there is, but there,
But at
there
the
really
same
is
time,
no
I
right
also
or
feel
wrong.
I always also agree with what you're saying. Right. The point of it is like you're debating out of your own passion.
Right.
Like, yeah, there are some things that you can tell a person is more into, like when you start getting into those debates. But for me, it's always like, oh, well, if you don't know this point about why I'm right, well, let me send you this episode so then you see it. Like it's still like
This is
let me like share this with you so then you can like come back and have this discussion more with me.
And
you know?
there really is, and it's funny that there's really never, at least in my experience, there's never really a change in opinion. There's never like, okay, yeah, you're right. Like it's
It very rarely happens.
it's like
Yeah.
it's like you're you have a basketball team that you like, and that's your team. No matter
Right.
what they say, that's it.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, there's others, but no.
But no.
Yeah, they won that championship, but no.
But no.
like that's what you feel like.
Right.
Yeah, that's really true. So.